ratified, have all countries, well, majority of countries sign up to the Rome Treaty to say, okay, now we will put in a permanent court. There have been a few ad hoc courts that have been put in after the event, like for Yugoslavia. But this now means that we have a permanent international criminal court in existence. So it's very new. The first case that actually commenced was in 1996. 1992, the court was put in place. 1996, they started their first case. They have four cases going on at the moment. So, but what we do know in those last 4 years is that it has been stupendously successful. It needs to be cranked up, without a doubt. It needs to be expanded. But we do now have somewhere we can go. And the beauty is that unlike the International Court of Justice, which deals with largely member state to member state disputes, largely over trade, the International Criminal Court is dealing with crimes, and that can be brought by either by recommendation of the Security Council through the UN, or it can be through a member state, or the prosecutor of their own volition can raise a case against an individual. And remember, it's against an individual, so it's a head of state, or it's a head of a corporation, or it's a head of an organization. Any individual can be taken here. Or a citizen of the world can write. And this is mainly what happens just now, is that people do write from African states asking for help. And that's how cases are then brought into the International Criminal Court. That is new. That is new. That is actually giving a voice to the people, a court where the people can raise their own issues, can actually go and ask that there's an investigation put in place so that an international crime can be investigated. And if there are breaches against either crimes against humanity, war crimes, genocide, or crimes of aggression, that they can then be prosecuted.
Do you think, Polly, that everything related to ecocide has to work through the UN? Or do you think that this could be developed as a parallel path?
Well, this is the interesting thing. The UN is very beneficial because actually without the UN we wouldn't have any international crimes. Without the UN we wouldn't have an international criminal court. The United Nations is the only international body that exists that allows us to put in place international crimes. Take that out of the agenda, then you're trying to get a whole load of countries to come together all over again without it coming under some body that is supposedly to represent the people. Because remember, the UN Charter was written on behalf and for the people, not for the corporations, not for the governments. And so, in a way, yes, it has its flaws, but it's a very good organization which just needs help itself to realize the ambitions of the citizenship at large, the global citizenship.
How do you envision, for example, the court that you're describing, this court that is going to be taking care of and dealing with ecocide? How do you see it not becoming what we call here a kangaroo court, where people can apply and you can go in, but what's done is a whole other issue? Very much like what's happening here with the Gulf Coast.
The beauty is with the International Criminal Court, it's certainly never been accused of being a kangaroo court. The judiciary is entirely independent, which is quite right. There have been calls, both here in Italy and Bolivia as well, for an international court of the environment. In fact, there's been a call for that for over 20 years. And that is another avenue that can be done. It doesn't have to be in the International Criminal Court. The beauty is, without having the International Criminal Court, is that it's an existing system. And that took 60 years to put in place.
Got it.
How long will it take us to put in place a brand new system? There is a certain amount of urgency here, and where we can use existing systems and extend them, and certainly existing systems that work, then I'm all in favor of that. If there's a new court up and running, well and good. But, hey, if we can just extend what we've already got, it's already got its rules and procedures in place, it's already got independent judges that are sitting on cases, it's already got its roster of staff, it's already got the whole mechanisms clunking along, so to say. So to just amend and add yet another crime that they deal with is a very simple process. We don't have to invent a whole new treaty. We don't have to invent a whole new negotiation around it. It's a far faster process than climate negotiations. Climate negotiations it's done by consensus. So you have 197 countries plus all the negotiators, which ranges between 5 and 500 negotiators per country. So you're talking thousands of negotiators all have to agree. So, of course, nothing ever agrees. It is built to fail. Whereas if we're looking at an amendment through an existing treaty, it's a 2/3 vote. And it's one country, one vote. So whether or not you're the size of Kiribati or the size of America, it does not matter. You only have one vote.
Got it. I totally get what you said. How would you see then how the instrument that you're going to put in place regarding ecocide would deal with the U.S. Navy plans to decimate 11.7 million marine animals over the next 5 years in the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Gulf of Mexico? Based on what you're sharing with us, would navies be answerable to this? Would our military be accountable to this?
The beauty is that the whole concept of responsibility and indeed superior responsibility that was put in place by the Nuremberg trials is that whether you be a prince or a pauper, you cannot evade your responsibilities. So it doesn't matter, what you're heading up. You will be still liable for any damage or destruction that you cause. Now, with an international crime of ecocide, this is really about dealing with mass ecocide. So it's a matter of, what makes mass ecocide? Now, the beauty is we already have during wartime. So under war crimes, we already have a definition for damage and destruction to the environment, which talks about severity, size, geographical size, and duration. And that is actually defined in international law as being something that covers an area of 100 square kilometers, creates an impact that will last for more than 3 months. And that impact is severe, i.e. creates, either loss of life or huge hindrance to lives, and not just human life. So if you use that definition, which exists during wartime, then you would find that, for instance, the oil spill is a crime during war. But at the moment, it's not a crime during all time, normal time. So really what we're doing is we're extending a premise that already exists there for war, and that was a premise that was finally put in after the Vietnam War with the NMOD conventions, when it was recognized that we really cannot do this ever again. Huge destruction, ecosystem destruction there, and damage to humans as well. So we already have that. It's a very simple exercise to extend that, not just to wartime, but all time. And that then, we're not having to kind of reinvent our wheel completely, but we're reliant on what's there already. Of course, you can argue that ecocide happens on a far smaller scale, which indeed it does, but for the purposes of an international criminal court, we're looking at the grossest breaches, that they have to be dealt with first and foremost. On a national level, then it can be dealt with at a smaller level as well, without a doubt.
Do you have enemies? And if you do, it sounds like you will.
Well, the beauty is with having enemies over this is that they don't want to talk to you. So I haven't met many of them yet.
Uh-huh.
And Tony Hayward's probably not going to ever be my best friend.
Yeah, it's so funny. During the Gulf oil spill at the beginning, I think 30 days into it, I spoke with a gentleman who had done 50 deep water drills. And I wanted to do something that would help move things forward quickly. Instead of just talk about how bad it is, I wanted to move. I wanted to start potentiating solutions right away. And he shared exactly what needed to be done. He says, look, this is exactly what they need to do. Boom, 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 boom. Then somebody